And we have with us now the mayor of Petaluma, David Glass, to join us here on set to kind of give us a sketch of what's happening on the city council there. You've got a fairly divided body.
Well, it's interesting because there are two clearly different philosophies on the ballot, and the early returns would indicate that the voters want to go a direction toward what I would say is a strong developer faction. It's interesting because most of the development, I think, has already been approved, but they are candidates that were heavily backed by developers, and that would be Mike Healy, and he has a very large lead and will easily win re-election. And then Kathy Miller and Gabe Kearney, and it looks like all three are safe at this point with the type of vote totals that they have. The thing that I'm watching now, because I think that the city council race, that makeup I think is pretty well decided when you look at the gap between those three and the other three that would represent environmental interests. So I'm looking at an ability to govern and an ability to build projects, and I'm really concerned about two things. One is Prop 30 on a statewide basis,
because that's right now
going to have a heavy impact on us, no matter what the makeup of a council is. And the other is locally a Measure X, which was to build parks and needed 2/3 of a vote to pass, and it's already down 58-41. I don't see that rallying and picking up the kind of support that it needs. So I don't know what we're going to be able to provide to the public. They vote for council members that talk about an action program, but the action is potentially going to be with Prop 30, even more cuts. And that's what I'm fearful of.
Mayor, any idea what you would be facing with cuts if Prop 30 goes down?
No, because it's too early, and I think that Jerry Brown said there is no plan B, and I think he was accurate when he said that. And so it's hard to know. We're already suing the state of California, or potentially will, over redevelopment funds that we lost on projects here on the Highway 101 corridor through redevelopment, and that would be the East Washington Freeway interchange and Highway 101. Those two projects, if we don't get our redevelopment money, will effectively consume all of our traffic impact fees for maybe decades. So we won't be doing much else. We'll be in a mode of trying to just maintain the services that we have. No matter who's mayor, no matter who's on the city council, we're still in a survival mode.
Potholes front and center again, huh?
Potholes are something that are becoming, unfortunately, a discretionary item to deal with. So you take care of the streets that people drive on a heavily used basis, and the rest of the streets are destined to crumble.
The governor has said that if Prop 30 goes down, loses, he's not going to come up with another alternative on the ballot, another tax increase. He's going to simply do what has to be done to make the state have a balanced budget. But a member of the assembly told me that he thought they would call a joint session of the legislature real quick to rearrange the priorities of what would be caught. And the cities will be in the middle of that.
Well, you know, the city should be in the middle of a lot of discussions that we haven't been to date. And I would hope that, you know, we would. I would hope that San Francisco would, that Los Angeles. You really look to your major cities to provide the leadership on that, because after all, we're a town of 60,000 people. We have been impacted. We have brought our workforce down from about 350 employees across the spectrum to 266. We've privatized community development where we contracted out. We have worked now with volunteers that have stepped up and provided animal services so that we're able to maintain services for our animals. We have a lot of compassion in our city. We have a lot of desire. We don't have a lot of capability going forward. And so what's hanging in the balance really is Prop 30.
In the past year, you mentioned that development projects in Petaluma are moving forward. In a couple of highly publicized cases, they've moved forward after striking a settlement with a citizens group to require additional improvements that they contend the city council or the planning commission should have enforced in the first place. With a pro-development council moving forward, it sounds like any projects like that that would come along before the city would be absent any further requirements for extras, if you consider them extras.
We had two different councils at the two different projects that you speak of. One was a Regency Target project, and I voted for that project. I actually was the one that brought Regency to Petaluma when I was mayor the last time around. It became a political football that was highly propagandized in our community, used for political benefit and leverage, and that became its legacy. However, I believe that that particular project received every single legally required mitigation that a council could put upon it. The other project, which is commonly called Friedman Brothers, but includes a whole lot more than that, simply did not get any suggestions from the City Council when it came forward. It was sold to the community as Friedman Brothers, but Friedman Brothers constitutes about 1/3 of the project. We could have had what was identified as the environmentally superior alternative in the environmental impact report, a skilled nursing facility right across the street from the hospital, would have had 25% less traffic reduction, would have reduced greenhouse gas emissions. And what I fear out of this council makeup going forward is that we've turned our back on the environment at the very time that we're seeing Hurricane Sandy. And where do we begin, one community at a time, to actually address this issue of greenhouse gas emissions and traffic impacts? And I can tell the people of Petaluma that the traffic relief is a long way away from coming, but the traffic will arrive in the very near future.
Mayor,
You got an extra lane coming from the north now.
Mayor, if Prop 30 loses, and I think in Petaluma your park measure looks like it's in big trouble, as you say yourself.
Yes.
Are the voters locally, statewide, trying to tell us something?
I think so. I think they are. I think they're fed up with government. I do, and there's lots of reasons to be fed up with the government. The pension system is one that you can't support from a standpoint, I mean support it economically. You can support it politically, and it has been, and that's a disaster. And I know that Joe Nation has tried to provide leadership on this issue when he was in the assembly and when he left. It's something that the bargaining units are going to have to get a grip on and come to the table and work with governments across the board. We've seen relief on the margins, and it won't be as negative a picture as people have painted, because it won't take 30 years to realize the savings on what has been agreed at the legislature. It'll be a slow process of a blend of savings as one workforce sunsets and another comes on. But that time frame is too far out, and we can't afford to wait for it. And the voters are sending a message that they're fed up, that they're working hard, they're seeing their own pensions ripped apart, and they're looking at government employees. And so government itself has to understand fundamentally what is going on, and I'm not sure that that's true yet. And I don't know what it takes for them to wake up and understand it.
In terms of any message you take from the voters in your town, in Petaluma, the pro-development measure on the or makeup of the council, you see it moving forward, is that simply a I like Target, I like Friedman's vote, or is there more to it than that?
I think there's some confusion as to how the city derives revenue, and it's also a statement about how do you get a message out into a community if you stand up for the environment, if you are a grassroots campaign. And the campaigns that are going down to defeat tonight in Petaluma are all grassroots campaigns. And so it's very difficult to raise the funds to compete against corporate interests, and that's what we're seeing. You're seeing money flood in from Arizona, for instance, $11 million in PAC money coming in that now they're talking about, is that money laundering? And you're seeing that ripple through the whole process, much like you're talking about the frustration with government on the pension side, the frustration if you're trying to run a people-oriented grassroots campaign, you're by definition eliminating the corporate sponsors on your campaign, and you can't find enough private people to make up the gap. And thank God for public television, and I'm glad Mitt Romney went down to defeat, because Big Bird would have won.
Big Bird is safe.
How would we get this message out? Because the corporate media is not going to put the message that I'm delivering here tonight in their newspaper. I mean, been there, done that. They're not going to do it.
Are you concerned about working with the council going
No,
forward
I'm
then?
not. They're good people individually. We have different philosophies. I don't think they're going to be able to achieve what they promised. And in fact, I don't see a path to achieve what they promised. I'm not sure some of them understand that. Others clearly do, and they look at it and say that's problems that will be faced decades from now and will be long gone. And I think that's a poor philosophy to govern from, because the legacy of problems accumulate, the frustration in government gets magnified, and the solutions never get arrived at. And so what I say to our community is, people promise traffic relief, they deliver half a promise, they deliver the traffic every time. And that's how I think this plays out.
It's interesting to me that for a long time, Petaluma had the reputation as being environmentally forward-looking. You have your big the sewer project and other things. So that legacy waning now?
No, not amongst the electorate, I don't think. The people themselves, if you polled the people and if they understood the ramifications of what was really happening, the people in the community embrace and love the environment. There was a day in February when people lined the park at Schollenberger on a cold, windy day on very short notice, and there were probably 1,500 people ringing that park and making a statement toward the environment. So one race we're going to watch very closely in Petaluma Petaluma. And this is a race that draws the boundaries on the environment, and Petaluma cares about deeply. That's the asphalt plant to the gateway to our community. And the race in the first supervisorial district has two different philosophies. Susan Gorin and John Sawyer, the people in Petaluma will move their attention to that race, I think, and watch it very closely and hope they can salvage a victory there, at least the environmentalists.
It
And
take
we'll
a
be
while to find out who wins that
It
race.
will, forever, won't it?
We'll be watching that one closely as the evening unfolds. David Glass, thank you
Thank
very much
you.
for being with us
It's a
here
pleasure
this
to be
evening.
here.
Thank you, Mayor.